The digital media landscape doesn't need more walls. It needs clarity, unlimited intelligence across competitors, audiences, inventory, and data, all in one place. Ask it anything and uncover the drivers behind performance. Path to conversion reporting, media mix modeling, intelligence that adapts in real time with clear revenue impact. Elevate your intelligence platform.
Hey everyone, I'm David Berkowitz with AI Marketers Guild, part of Marketecture, and happy to be here for another edition of AI Insiders. And got a terrific guest today with Bethany Crystal. Got introduced to Bethany when another group I was in was talking about who's doing some of the best AI training out there. And a friend of mine, Matt Blumberg, said, well, you've got to meet Bethany. She's amazing. She has a site, Bethany the Builder. She build first. And I said to Matt, if she's that good, want to connect Bethany to me. And already before I met her, I'm like this is someone who probably has a lot to share with AI Marketers Guild. And that was back in February. And so couldn't wait, even if it took a little bit to schedule this, to have you here. So Bethany, thanks for building with us.
Thank you for having me. I am a marketer by training as well. So I've been bringing a lot of that personal lived experience into my AI journey. We've got, I think, a pretty tight hour today, right? We're ending at 1 o'clock on the dot. So I'm going to go in and basically launch in. Typically, I run these sessions as 90-minute to 2.5 hour facilitated builds where people follow along. So I'm warning you in advance. I'm going to move pretty quickly through what we're building today, but I'm also going to leave behind some slides and a follow along website that you can use to play along at home more slowly. Since you are also transcribing this conversation, I encourage you to take the transcript and ask your AI for help as well. So awesome. I'm going to be building a marketing operating system dashboard. We're just going to kind of dive right in here. This is going to be like mostly me building stuff, but if you also feel inclined to build on your own, you can kind of team up and watch these slides along the way. So I'll make the sharing viewable here.
Awesome.
And anyone can kind of jump on in. So
yeah, we talked about doing an extra long session to accommodate more of the usual flow, but I'm like we'll give the speed through and the taste of it. And
it'll be really fun. Mm-hmm. So if you'd like to chat and participate in conversation, I think it'd be really fun to hear what other folks are already building. So I'd love to hear who you are, what you do, and maybe what does the idea of like a marketing operating system mean to you? Because one of the things I think is so cool about what's happening in this AI no-code builder movement is that we're all being invited to think and act like engineers. So we get to design our own operating systems. I'm going to show you what mine looks like that helps me run and power my own business. And then I'm going to show you how to get started on building one with a marketing lens in mind. So I'd love to hear some thoughts there. A little bit of background on me. I spent 15 years working in the tech industry, mostly in go-to-market, sales, marketing, and operations roles until last year when AI empowered me to start building and deploying my own apps. So I launched 2 apps live in the App Store, largely with my own AI no-code tools. They're both apps for my kids in mind. Zero commercial viability on either one of them, but I learned a lot about how to build. And now I run Build First, where I teach other people how to really think like engineers as well. In the last year, we've trained 2,000 people, mostly corporates, teams, and small business owners, how to get their first apps across the finish line at building with AI. And we're going to start that process today. So I'll spend a couple minutes just on what exactly is an operating system. I'm going to go through what is normally an AI power hour sprint, or we spend an hour actually building, but I'm just going to show you there are 3 sort of basic building blocks that will help you get anything from 0 to MVP. And being able to learn how to rinse and repeat this cycle is how we become better builders. There's also a follow along website that you can use, which I'll just drop this link in as well. Um, this is a site that will sort of guide you through the process of what we're building today and sort of be a take home. So it has everything you need in here, the links to the slides, a workshop survey, and then we're going to have everyone sort of pick one of these things to remix. So quick preview of what's ahead.
So cool.
I teach every class like a yoga class. There's a beginning flow, there's like a middle vinyasa, and then there's a conclusion end state. Also think it's important to acknowledge that we're all coming into AI from really different vantage points. So what I found in teaching 2,000 people AI is that there's not just fluency and non-fluency. There's levels and tiers to building. So level 1 is going from conversational chatbot to customized chatbots. I think most of you probably built projects, custom GPTs, Gemini gems, moving up into bespoke software like vibe coding solutions, interfaces, app design, and then agentic workflows. Today, I run my entire business through a dashboard I built myself. This is repurposed information in the Harry Potter scheme, not real data. But you can see it's pulling in my calendar, my invites for every call that I have, my inbox, every single transcript that I have, and even my financial data. It's pulling in the next steps that I have to make. It's helping me auto-generate my next emails, create my invoices, create my proposals, update my contracts, manage my P&L. All of this is happening through a series of mini sub-agents that are essentially just markdown files in my Claude Code instance. Today, I integrate a lot of different information. Some of these are live data sources. Some of these are static data sources. But I didn't start like that. I started with one simple problem, which is that I needed help managing and tracking my own sales pipeline. And once I was able to get the accuracy of that very, very strong, I've been able to build on top of it in a much more consistent way. Because as it turns out, it all is about what your starting problem and context is. So we're going to spend today picking one starting problem as it relates to marketing. We're going to go through 3 sprints, teaching the AI about that context, teaching the AI what the logic is. What do we want the AI to decide, create, or take action on with that? And then what is the interface? What do we want it to actually look like at the result? Any questions before we kind of dive in? All right, let's go. I'm going to use Claude Code as our demo environment. I'm going to use the desktop app version of this. You could do this in any number of ways. So there's 3 sort of starter builds that we could take. One is taking the information that you have and turning it into a content repurposing factory, maybe turning things into LinkedIn posts, newsletter blurbs, ad hooks, scripts, whatever. The second is maybe a marketing performance angle. The third is a campaign launch kit. So what happens when you click on one of these is that you'll start to get some structured sprints here. This is really helping you teach the AI what you want to do. So I encourage you to take this and fill this in with your own details and information. For me, I have created my own ahead of time so that I can share this with you. I'm going to create a content factory for Build First based on webinar transcripts, customer calls, blog posts. Because I'm a company of one, I publish everything myself on LinkedIn, newsletter, Instagram, all these places, and I want my AI to help me with that. So before this session, I organized a lot of information into a folder on my desktop that I now call Marketing OS. In it is things like my brand voice, my personas, my positioning. There's a README on everything that's in here. There's some actual sales calls. I put anonymized sales calls in here for this session, and I put some like workshop templates in my product. All of this is context and information that's going to help my AI learn how to do this. Yes, I do use GitHub, but I tend to start with just sort of locally hosted, then I push things up to GitHub once I'm sort of ready for them to be a little bit broader. So I'll show you kind of how that process works for me. If you're doing things in other ways too, would love to sort of hear how that's working for all of you. So what we're going to do now is open up Claude Code. And Claude Code is going to be my builder tool of choice for this. It's important that you point your folder towards the thing you want to build. And then we're going to start by basically just asking the AI to read everything that's in this folder and synthesize it. So on the website, there's like a sort of starter prompt there. but I'm going to make sure that the AI is reading the information and understanding my business the same way that I am. What did you create that context? Yeah, a good question. I actually ended up creating all of the context with my AI. But I pulled in real information and real documentation because I wanted to make it as real as possible. I like to start every build with static information first, and then I progress into like live actual integrations. All right, I'm going to try this again. Let's reshare my screen. Um, the other nice thing about starting with static content is you get a lot more control over what the AI is doing, and then you can sort of fix it and make it changing. Okay. So, as you can see, it's noted that the exact things in my folder are a little bit different because I had them named differently. So, it's a good sign. The AI is effectively reading all these pieces of information. I like to sort of see what it's looking at in here. So, it's looking at my brand voice, which includes things like my personas, my positioning, a couple of sample call scripts, a README file. I think of this context gathering phase essentially like onboarding an intern. I need it to know what I need so that it can do its job as effectively as possible. If you've ever hired an intern and you wrote them like an onboarding guide for what they need to know to work at your company, this is essentially what we're doing here. We're teaching the AI. And then the way that you test it is you make the AI sort of describe back for you what it has done. Just like you might have an intern like do a project or a test. I've done something similar, but by creating a project in Claude with those various assets. No, it's all about kind of how you like to work. I put things in .txt and .markdown files that were originally PDFs and Word docs because it's a little bit more operationally efficient from a token perspective. It costs fewer tokens for the AI to read a PDF or to read a Markdown file than it does to read a whole PDF. So that's where I try to start with those places. Okay, so we're gonna see what happened. It's created a summary doc. Fantastic. It is saying we know who Build First is, we know your brand voice, we know your audience segments, we know your goals, we know your formats. And now I need to sort of test it and say, great, who are my personas? So if it gets this question wrong, right, then I shouldn't build something. I need to make sure it's actually able to answer my questions properly. So great, it knows I have some personas, an enterprise transformation lead, like a head of strategy, a nimble operator, the people enablement leader, the creative studio owner, solo operator. Fantastic. I've effectively tested that it knows its job. Now I'm going to be prepared to move in to sprint 2. So I'll show you what happens in here. By the way, if you've been following along here, I gave it a project, I gave it some goals, I summarized the context, I made sure it knew what it was doing. Great. Now I'm ready for what's next. I want to actually build this into a content factory engine. I wanted to take the information that I've given and build with me to start generating more things. So I'm going to now have it read again all the information in there, but come up with like a plan to start building. So I'm going to copy this prompt. I can edit this. I could tweak this. Yes, this is Claude Code that I'm using. And I'm using the desktop iteration of Claude Code. So I'm going to say, like, let's read this based on my goals, come up with a good artifact. And what I'm going to do is put this into plan mode so that it doesn't just start overbuilding for me. The intern metaphor here is actually really helpful because just like an intern, the AI is overeager. It will build more than you need. It will build before you're ready. So I'm constantly trying to make sure we are spending way more time planning and getting ourselves organized before we actually start coding and building logic and adding front ends. The other really nice thing about spending time on planning is that you can keep all of those folders and artifacts for a future build. So I could create a really good plan with one AI, copy that folder, pull it into a completely different setup, and then see how that AI might interpret it. So spending a lot of time getting your knowledge organized will save you a ton of time on the back end. Yes, and I see there are some folks who are comfortable and familiar with Claude here. If you look at the top here, there's sort of three sessions in Claude Desktop. There's the chat interface where you can just have conversations. There's the co-work instance where you can create those automated workflows. And then there's the Claude Code instance. Sometimes if I really want to start planning before I'm building, I'll just go into the chat mode and I'll start describing what I want. I'll turn on this microphone feature and I'll just sort of talk out loud for a while, and then I'll get there. At this point, I'm a little bit more comfortable here. Okay, so I've told it what I want to build. And now that I'm in plan mode, Claude Code's going to start to ask me some follow-up questions, which is great. It's saying, okay, so when you're talking about company of one, you're talking a lot about working in solo operators. Do you want these LinkedIn posts spread across personas? I like this question. I'm going to say do one per persona. We don't have any prospect quotes. How should we source real quotes? Oh, I'm going to say we'll pull in some sales calls. And what is the primary next step or CTA? Let's do a booking inquiry. Great. So I'm starting to work with the AI to make some questions there. My path will deviate from your path. Now it's going to come up with like a more thorough plan for me. Anyone have questions about where we're at so far? Nothing yet? All right, while this is building, I'm going to pull us back into slides for just a second. The most important thing to do in step 2 here, when we're building out this logic layer, is really asking ourselves, what do we want the AI to do to help us solve that problem? And that is why coming up with that problem is so, so important. And there's 3 paths that you can choose. You can have the AI create stuff for you, create content, create marketing plans, create launch materials, and that could be one sort of path. The second is you can have it decide something with you. Evaluate this opportunity, rank it across my buyer personas, my launch plan, and my goals, and tell me if I should continue to pursue this partnership. Or you can have it take action, read everything, read all my content, write a blog post and publish it on my platform, read through my inbox, collect information, identify my prospects, and reply to them. So it's really important to really decide for yourself which thing you want to be building first. You can always add more things later, but really getting to that point is really, really helpful. Let's see. It says essentially a RAG system. No, yeah, not a RAG system. This is a pretty basic model. I had maybe a half a dozen files in that folder that I shared. But what I would do next is actually link in real live data with things like MCPs and APIs. How did I add content for context? So I like to think about the problem I'm trying to solve. In this case, I want my AI to create a content generation factory tailored to my buyer personas. Once I've identified that problem, I can ask the AI what context would be really helpful for you to help me solve this problem. And it might be example sales calls, example buyer personas, example content. So really working through that initial phase is helpful. And then what I shared on that other website for you is like kind of a starting point to get you going there. So are you guys ready to see the plan? Okay, so it wants to take a company of one talk into a week of content. So that's a presentation that I recently gave. It's coming in my factory goals. It's saying it's my own voice because it was my presentation. And it's going to create some LinkedIn posts for each of my personas. So it's accurately pulling in these personas, which is great. It's pulling in some hooks to push to my products. I had in there some information about the products that I sell. And it's also coming up with some of these ideas for what could be a short form video script and other details. It looks like it's missing some things, like where do I want things to go? I pull in like a calendar link, website, want the CTAs to be, and it's confirming some of my pricing. I'm gonna accept this for now and just sort of see what it builds. But this is the opportunity for you to like kind of read through that initial plan and make any changes, tell it what you want, add more information, things like that. Did that answer your question? It was Karen who was asking about where this content came from.
Sort of. I mean, I'm thinking about like something like Notebook LM that uses sources. So that's, I mean, I have a personal interest in this, so I was just curious about how you do that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, it really depends on what problem. I know that's like such a broken record. It really depends on what problem you're trying to solve. If I'm solving a problem where I want to explore a new go-to-market opportunity for my business based on a new industry vertical, what might be really helpful is a deep research query in partnership with Notebook LM about the industry vertical that I'm considering. So in that case, I might start by using Notebook LM to aggregate a lot of information and then come up with, okay, based on this research, what are the things I could sell them? And then how do I build something from there? There's like so many different ways to sort of approach this. So it kind of depends on what you need now and what the best set of starting context is to get the AI working. Any other questions in there? Oh yeah, Codex is a great one. Actually, most of my engineering friends today are swearing by Codex over Claude Code. I haven't yet made the full switch, but it's been really powerful. While this is starting to generate the first draft of the plan, I'll also mention that everything we're building right now is local. So I'm keeping this locally hosted on my browser. I'm not pulling in any real-time data yet, and I won't have any publicly available website unless I decide to deploy it somewhere else. I think that's actually kind of cool. Like a lot of the tools that we are building can just be software for one person or apps for us. And I basically build myself a new app to help me do my job every single week. And that's been kind of really, really helpful. Oh, good question on planning on the pace. I am basically just using Opus 4.7 for this. But if you have, I have the $100 a month plan of Claude, and I also do a lot of these sessions, and I'm going to optimize for it, kind of giving it a lot of thought and thinking really clearly so that I can move pretty quick through this. But for simpler problems or smaller features, Sonnet is you're right, Dan, definitely much more economical. It's like using a semi truck for getting milk. Yeah. Good analogy. Okay. So you can sort of see what it's been doing here. It's been reading everything that I have. It's reading my brand pack, the artifact that I shared, my goals, my sales calls, my workshop templates. It's writing a plan. We approved the plan. It's writing a command now. So it's starting to create more detailed information in here. We can kind of take a peek at what it's doing. Creating what these files would look like. One of the nice things about Claude Desktop is that you don't need to get super embedded into the engineering workflow. But one of the things I don't like is that you kind of lose sight on what the file system and folder structure looks like over time. So sometimes I actually like to use Claude Code inside of a text editor like Cursor or VS Code. Is Claude is down. Nice. The Addis map is often compared hilarious to a bag of frozen whole food peppers. Okay. So let's see what we've got here. As it is, it's asking me some questions, which is good. So this is where I'm going to pull in some real data and information here. So I might go to my website and give it my Calendly link. I might give it like a CTA, some other information in here. So I'm going to say, here is my site. Here is my link. And it will hopefully pull those in and make this as useful as possible. There's a lot of other artifacts that I could be pulling in here too. Things like my logo, my style kit, my brand guidelines. The more you sort of get comfortable with this, the more you can sort of add on over time. Today, the operating system that I run my business through has basically every single part of my business linked in as a different folder, API, or MCP. Partial outage of Opus. All right, so I think I should switch models. Let's go. The other issue that I often run into with these sessions is actually not AI issue, but it's Wi-Fi bandwidth. Sometimes I run these like 150-person hackathons in one room, and everyone's trying at the same time, and it just completely blows through hotel Wi-Fi. It's pretty funny. Great. Thanks for sharing, Earl. I run AI as a working team, not as a content machine. At least something that still works on Friday. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm a one-person company right now. Everything that I've been doing is me, my AIs, and some subcontractors. And I really believe in the power of bespoke human touch. And I recognize that for me, the strongest content that I create is actually through sessions like this and through my workshop content. So by recording every single call and transcript, I can then repurpose that with AI's help to sort of spread that out. So I think that's a really good use case of generative AI. Okay, so it's pulled everything in, and it sounds like we've tested this. So let's test this and see what you created. What I'm expecting now is that it's created LinkedIn posts related to each of these 5 personas based on the session that I ran, a one-person operating system. So we're going to see now if this system is running properly. Okay, so here we go. It's going to create 5 LinkedIn posts for each of my buyer personas. Oh, it's also going to create a newsletter blurb. Fantastic. This sounds great. Generate the content. What I like to tell people when they're building and testing is get the thing working right once, really, really great. Then get it working twice, then 10 times, then 100 times. Okay. I know it can feel like we're wasting a lot of time by spending so much time getting the first draft really good. But if you have a shitty first draft on how the logic works, it's not going to build you a system that's going to really scale long term. Okay. So now you can see it's actually generating this for me. This feels, again, a little bit like LinkedIn spammy. Like I might spend some time trying to make this sound a little bit better. But, you know, this probably looks pretty similar to the kind of content that you're all seeing on LinkedIn. So here's the people team. It's sort of changing the mode. It's having my CTA in there, pulling a creative studio mode. That's also great. So, okay, this is probably not that dissimilar from what a lot of you are probably already doing in chatbots, right? You're talking to it, you're having a conversation. The difference is every time I'm having it take an action for me, I'm having it learn and document along the way so that I'm not wasting that effort a second or third time. So now what I'm going to ask the AI to do is basically take those instructions, canonize it into a script, and then we could build like an actual interface layer to help us power this through. So I'm going to say, this looks good. Let's save this work as a script we can repeat. So I can drop in a new call transcript and generate personas for other content as well. Okay, so this is going to start generating that. And now I'm ready to go in to the third sprint, which is I'm going to take the information and I'm going to start to pull it in to make something real. So let's
You don't use Whisperflow? Do you use Whisperflow?
I do use Whisperflow. Yeah, I find it sometimes is confusing for people on calls, but I'm a diehard Whisperflow user. Yeah, I can, if you've not used it, I can do that for the last bit here, because now what we're going to do is basically have the AI take everything that's done so far, but make this into a visual interactive interface layer. So in Sprint 3, it's giving us some ideas for what that could look like. But I'm going to also just editorialize a little bit by describing more about what I actually want to be able to do. There's a framework that really helps here called Pop It, where you can really describe what you're trying to build in a really clear way. describe the output, and then make the AI actually start working for you. So I'll briefly show you all of that. This is an acronym that really helps me when I'm whisper flowing or just describing that. Is I start by describing the problem I'm trying to solve, describing the output that I want the AI to create. In this case, I'm going to have it create a dashboard. Describing the prompt, which is going to be my instructions, telling it what input to reference, and then I need to know how I'm going to test it. So if I'm going to kind of voice dictate there, I'm going to need to make sure that I'm using that properly. So let's go back into Claude Code now and go in to this final build sprint and see how far we can get on a dashboard in the next 15 minutes here. I know this is a little bit speed running here. All right, let's see. Okay, now we are going to take all of what you've done and help me create an interface dashboard for my marketing operating system. The problem that I'm trying to solve is that I have a lot of calls and workshop transcripts that I'm not repurposing them into content that could help drive my business forward. I would like you to create an interface, an interactive view based on the logic we've defined, trained on me and my business, where I can upload a new call transcript and immediately get the information repurposed and remixed for the 5 buyer personas and a newsletter that can help me over time. Please review everything that you have in here and ask me any questions before we build. So that's like the kind of way that I would prompt this AI. I used Whisper Flow. It didn't sound like it pulled it in there, so I'm just going to copy it. You can see the words that I have there. And before I build, I'm putting it back in plan mode because at this point, I do not want it to just like YOLO a front end. So really every step along the way, I am pausing with the AI. I'm really thinking with the AI. I'm not letting it just kind of go crazy until I have more confidence that it understands me and my business. Do I create videos and ad reels? Oh, that's a great question. I actually haven't been creating a ton of videos yet. It's one of my summer plans. I'm going to use my friend's tool called Glyph, which I think some of you might really like. It's agentic AI video creation. So they even have these fun little pre-made prompts that can help you kind of solve for a lot of different use cases, like influencers or building like customized prompts and brands going forward. And I don't know. I think you might find it pretty fun. Okay. So now I'm going to have the same thing. How should we process your transcripts? I'm going to use the Anthropic API key. I'm going to run this locally for now. I'm going to have a generator and a library. Are people here familiar with how to get API keys? Yeah. Okay. I am going to go ahead and get one, but I'll show you how I'm going to get one while this is kind of generating here. So the most important thing about getting an API key is that you don't want to share it with other people. But it is really important to make sure that you're being safe in how you are locating this. So I'm going to be using Claude to get an API key. You can sort of see here where this kind of happens. You can get one through the command line, or you can get one through your Claude console on its own. So I'm going to just log in to my Claude instance. I should see my instance here and my API keys. On this list, I'm seeing every recent API key that I've created, and I'm going to go ahead and create a key, name it for the project I'm working on, which is Marketing OS. But I'm going to stop sharing before I copy that key because I don't want you all to see it. Typically with API keys, you only get access to it once, and you will need to create a .env file to save it for yourself locally. So that often means I will need to go back to my Claude Code instance and say, create a .env.local file for my API key. And once it creates the file, or I can create it on my own, I could drop in the key and hopefully it would work. And you do have only one chance to secure it. It's true. So what the AI often does is it creates it's called a .env for environment variables, .local, which is the local instance of your environment variables, or it will create a .env.example file so that you can sort of have that pre-created, and then you copy it from the API, you pull it in, you paste it in there, you save it. So I'm going to have my Claude do that now.
I also just gotta say, I continue to be amazed by how helpful the community is here responding to each other.
So great. Yeah.
I don't always say it enough, but I mean, yeah, I just appreciate this back and forth. It's like before I can even think of what to say, someone's got a better answer.
It's honestly so great. And I think part of what is wonderful about networks like this is it's really hard to learn this stuff on your own in silos. So everyone is like having this wonderful opportunity where we're all exposed to a supercomputer in our pockets, but we don't get to build in community all the time. So that makes it really, really hard. And I think being able to just see how other people do things or build with other people is also just incredibly, incredibly cool. So thanks for organizing all this. So it's gonna take another couple minutes. Finish this plan, create a local file. Any other questions I could answer for folks as this is sort of percolating? There's one new thing in here. I only go down 765 rabbit holes a day. Hilarious. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It is actually part of building stuff like this is sort of knowing when to stop. And sometimes you stop when you hit your token limit, or sometimes you stop when you hit your time limit, or sometimes you stop when you sort of scope something really, really small. And that's part of why I think scoping things down in a really, really small way is actually often the biggest benefit of building.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Claude Code versus Codex. I know Claude Code. Codex is a new word for me.
Oh, yes. Well, it's a different tool. So it kind of depends on where you like your lattes. In some way, Codex is the ChatGPT version of basically Claude Code. So I will send you a link in here. What I suggest to folks is sort of like the last wave in mobile was, are you an iPhone or are you an Android user? There's like a new sort of wave happening right now of tool preferences when it comes to large language models. And some people are having and gravitating towards open source tooling and models and agentic workflows. Some are gravitating more toward the Claude Code or Codex, or, there's sort of different flavors. It's really hard to learn anything unless you're really dedicated and doubling down to something for a longer term period. So I would suggest not just sort of jumping from thing to thing, but like building something from end to end with one of these tools and then trying it in another tool the same way and see which one you like better, and or even change every like 6 months. So I think there's no way on earth that all of us are going to be fully up to speed with the latest and greatest things. But I do think there's a massive benefit in learning one new tool or one new framework each week. So that's basically the standard I hold myself to. I am not a self-proclaimed expert in many of the brand new things, including OpenClaw and whatnot. But I ask myself, is the AI and the way that I'm using it solving this problem for me? And if not, then I kind of move on.
I think the stickiness for any of these platforms is the memory, is the fact that it learns from the interaction. That's why you really want to stay. Like you said, I mean, everybody is marketing the next best thing, and I don't think any of us would really be able to tell the difference from one than the other.
No, it's true. And I mean, it really kind of depends again on like what your problem is that you're trying to solve for. So that's where it's like I'm not using the latest and greatest tool, but the way that I'm building with AI is actually solving my problem. So that's great. um, anyone else have thoughts or reflections on that? Okay, I'm gonna see where our Claude is building. Um, it's created a file structure for me, which is fantastic. I am saving things in here. Let's build. So, just to play up where we're at right now, we've built the context, we've built the logic, we've pulled in the API key, we've approved the plan, and now Claude Code is going to build the interface layer. These 3 steps of building are really, really helpful because you can really build anything in 3 steps. What is the context that you're starting with? What do you want the AI to do? And then how do you want it to look when you're done? Hermes is really good. That's actually next thing on my list of what I want to learn too. Yeah. Yeah, and OpenClaw is also one of those. And one of the ways that I like to test things is by creating sort of sandbox environments that have different relative risk platform layers that I'm comfortable with. So at this point, I'm running real client accounts with real user data through my operating system. That's not going to be the place I'm going to test OpenClaw. But I also run my entire block association with Claude Code. So and I run an email list of 300 people there, and I do a lot of text-based communication. So for me, it's a much lower risk if I mess up for that audience than it would be for like my actual end-to-end business audience where I have a lot of data. So that's part of why I like to have like a lot of different projects going, because each project I'll sort of pick a different tool and sort of build that. Using the latest and greatest trade is always the worth the time for client work. Yeah, it's actually very true. So while this is loading, I'm going to show you all what like a complete dashboard sort of looks like, just to give you a sense of like where things would go. I'm curious, has anyone here been building like real-time interfaces and dashboards for your own work?
Yeah.
A couple folks. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Well, let me show you where mine has sort of landed for now, and then I'll kind of dig in there. So this again is I have a presenter mode view where it just like masks everything and makes up new information for Harry Potter, which makes me able to demo it. And what you can see is this is a lot of like little mini agents at work here, where if I click refresh, it's gonna like read through my email. It's gonna come up with like a next step for each of these conversations. These prep calls are relating to what are real upcoming meetings for me and what I need to do. Each week I can set myself goals for the week, and then the AI will like give me like real-time advice on how to sort of prioritize it. I also track in real time what's happening week to week, so I can create like investor reports and overviews there. And for me, this has been like the bread and butter of what I've been building is like I have my entire list of companies. It reads from my email. It pulls in the last set of details, and then it actually is like pulling in potential real next steps. So, this is like a Rita Skeeter wand event. For Ginny Weasley, it's talking about what I have to do next. And if I wanted to create an email, it's actually going to read all that context and then generate an email for me. And if I click send, it will actually send this email because it's connected into my inbox. I've been moving with the AI slowly so that I'm not just getting to this point where it's doing everything for me without a human in the loop. But what happens is once it's doing things well enough, I start to sort of trust it more. Again, just like an intern. So I have a pacing chart here that's pulling in real data from my Stripe accounts. I pull in some static data from like my expenses every month, and then it sort of updates things as I go, kind of helps me measure and track things. I don't think I have this live on here now, but I just was playing around with like a coach module that was actually helping me create like a CFO and a CEO coach. This bit's been really fun because it's also pulling in like real data from real clients. It connects to my Stripe account, so I can do like one-click invoicing. I could immediately see where my companies are at, who is maybe late on paying me, and I can sort of get visibility into there. And then I sort of create these like other app modules based on the goals that I have each week. So one week I was looking at PE firms and I had it just create a PE firm page here. Or this week I was doing financial projections and I had it create a whole other realm there. So the way that I now run my every step of the way to build another thing with me, and I just come back to that like pop it interface concept every single time. So yeah, I'm curious, what have you all been building? Is it similar to that sort of context? What else has been working?
I've been building features for my software for my curation tool. I just released one that syncs folders with Notebook LM, and I'm amazed of how easy it is. Something that would have cost me thousands of dollars, I was able to do myself, within
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And that,
just getting started.
Yeah.
sorry, hopefully my audio is okay. Bethany, thank you so much for walking me through your process. It's really interesting. My approach has been a little bit different. I've found that a lot of my friends and peers who use AI or use Claude as their base. For me, I stick to ChatGPT and I use every other platform for their special skills. So
Yeah.
I come from an agency background. So for me, Claude is my strategist, and I put all the context that it needs for the project that I'm working on. Then I use Claude as my copywriter, and I use Gemini, Nana Banana 2, or Grok for image generation as my designer. And I do Complexity as my researcher. So if I can find information, Gemini, Grok, and properties. So for me, I use all the different platforms in conjunction, and I use context files to transmit information between the different platforms.
I mean, that's amazing. And I think like one of the really cool things about what's happening right now is we're all being given the technological agency to build things just like we want. Small batch software, home cooked software. It's about what works for you. My husband's a Broadway sound designer and he used like 5 coding interfaces to help him manage like sound engineering for a lot of different projects. And that's going to look really different from what my dashboard looks like or what my process looks like.
Right. This is great though. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Anyone else? And I want to see where we ended up with the last minute here. Anyone else have a question or a comment before we sort of wrap?
This has been so action packed and I love it. Like, even if I think many of us could easily spend 2+ hours do all this with you, and I learn from you. Hopefully this is just the start of such experiences, and open to some kind of part 2 of this at some point. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from a number of community members, especially as we share this and your resources with a broader group. So yeah, thank you for taking us all through this very real look at how things get made.
Yeah, I mean it's the messy early beginnings there. If you want to replicate this on your own or a similar process, these 3 sort of steps. I know we kind of got into like a lot of different directions, but starting with those 3 steps is really what gets you building something, and then it always kind of pivots and deviates from there.
Amazing. Well, yeah, already getting word about repeat viewing here. We'll have this on YouTube and everything so that folks can go and follow along at whatever 0.5 or 2x speed, whatever's their thing. So
0.5. Yeah, that's hilarious.
But yeah, thanks. And thanks for everyone for the slew of incredibly helpful comments and questions. And yeah, we've got a bunch of events coming up. We even have a bonus event in New York at Stripe tomorrow. We got first Wednesday next week. So we'll be around doing stuff during Tech Week. And keep checking out the speaker lineup and looking forward to seeing all of you a lot coming up. And yeah, thanks everyone for being here. And especially thank you, Bethany. This is such a treat.
Awesome. Will do. And I'll send you all some screenshots of this like final build, since I want to make sure we end right on time and my Claude is still working. But thanks so much.